So again, this is the Connect series. We've been focusing up through October on the Uniform Support Group program, specifically the Incident Commander to Incident Commander. Took a break in November, December, but we're back, and we're going to continue with the Incident Commander program. A little bit about the Uniform Support Group programs, in case you're not aware of them. Basically, when a firefighter dies in the line of duty, department personnel go through different emotions based on the position at the time. And only somebody that's been in that position, has been through that experience, can directly relate to that individual. So based on that, the fallen firefighters created several Uniform Support Group outreach programs. The one we're going to talk about today is the Incident Commander and Incident Commander, and it's just what it sounds like. Should an Incident Commander suffer a line of duty death for a firefighter under his command, we match them with another Incident Commander that's been through that, so they can help them through this process. There are also some other components to that, an educational component, peer meeting component, some other things that you can go on our website, firehero.org, and take a look at, and we'll talk about at the end a little bit. But the main function is that peer support. There's also a chief-to-chief network that is exactly the same thing. A fire chief that experiences line of duty death can be matched up with another fire chief. And we're in development of a company officer to company officer program for that position in the department. So outstanding programs. Please go on the website, take a look at them, and be happy to help or answer any questions as we go through this. A little bit about today. We are very fortunate to have Chief Joe Ondrasek with us today. He's from Bryan, Texas Fire Department. Experienced line of duty death back in 2013. And Chief, truly appreciate you taking the time to share your experience with us today.
Thank you very much.
A little bit about Chief Andersek. He's currently Assistant Fire Chief of Operations for Bryan Fire Department with a little over 30 years of fire service experience. He began as a volunteer firefighter. He's got a Bachelor of Science degree in Fire Administration from Columbia Southern University. And he's a Master Firefighter, Paramedic, and a graduate of the Texas Fire Chief Academy. At the time of the incident we're going to be discussing today, he was the battalion chief for the shift commander for A shift. So a little bit about the fire. It occurred February 15th, 2013, and about approximately 11:19 p.m., the Brazos County 911 received a call reporting a fire at the Knights of Columbus Hall, 1500 Grossback Street in Bryan, Texas, which is in Brazos County. The building was built in 1945, and after some modifications is estimated to have a floor area of approximately 7,400 square feet. On arrival, fire units reported visible fire at roof level on the Alpha Bravo corner of the single-story building. And unfortunately, two firefighters, Lieutenant Wallace and Lieutenant Pickard, lost their lives in this incident. So again, Chief, welcome, and thank you very much for taking the time and sharing your experiences with us. So.
Well, thank you again, Ian, for asking me to share our event with the group and with our audience.
Excellent. So most important thing about this, tell us about Lieutenant Wallace and Lieutenant Pickard. Who were they? What do you want people to learn about them? And I'll start our presentation here.
Okay. Well, that night, at Bryan, we are small enough to, as a battalion chief, I knew everybody, knew their families that worked on my shift. We're very small enough to where we get to know each other, and Lieutenant Wallace was no different. He had been with us for 12 years. He was hired back in 2000. He lived in a small community right outside of Bryan, and this was his dream job. That's where he wanted to work. He was young, energetic, had his hands in a lot of projects we have going on here at the fire department. He taught the children. We have what we call a Gator Camp for children, public fire education. He taught that. He taught our Citizens Fire Academy. He was a head of our hazardous materials team. He was on our, we call it our truck committee, but our engine committee when we get new vehicles. Again, just very passionate about being on the job, about doing the best he could. And again, just a growing leader in our organization. He was a recipient. In Texas, we have a group called the 100 Club of Houston. They honor first responders who go above and beyond. Eric was a recipient of one of those awards back in 2010 when off duty he pulled somebody out of a burning trailer house. So again, just always, again, just very proactive about the job and wanting to help people. He was married. His wife, Brandy, they had five kids. You know, for Eric, you know, he and I, we were good friends. He loved to play golf. I loved to play golf. He rode motorcycles. I rode motorcycles. So he and I spent you know, a lot of our time off doing those things. So that was Eric. Lieutenant Pickard, you know, Greg was a mentor to a lot of people, including myself. He was the old guy, if you will, in the fire department, which is funny because I'm his age right now. But he's the old guy in the fire department, and a lot of people looked up to Greg. Everybody did. He loved the fire department. He had joined back in 1980, you know, he was a true leader in our organization. He's married to Susie. They had 2 kids. Greg was he was on our rescue team in Bryan. We have a technical rescue group for our region. Greg was really involved in that. He was a member of our Texas Task Force 1, which again, very prestigious group. Greg was he led part of the rescue when the bonfire collapsed at A&M. So again, very, very well ingrained in our organization, just teaching and leading everyone that came into the organization. You know, Greg loved the outdoors. He too liked to play golf. He and I, as well as others, played golf a lot with Eric too. But again, knew him very well. Him and his wife knew my wife, and we spent time together. So again, Greg, can't say enough about him. Just a true mentor in our organization. So that was Greg.
Thanks, Chief. Pretty powerful there. Now, you also had a couple firefighters injured in this incident as well.
Yeah, you know what was unique about this incident is when Eric got in trouble, we had a RIT team. Greg, Lieutenant Pickard was the lieutenant of that RIT team, but the other 2 members, Ricky Manti and Mitch Moran, were the other 2 team members on that RIT team. And you know, they rushed right in, and we'll talk about that. But they rushed right in, and when the flashover occurred and they got burned, Ricky Manti and Mitch Moran survived the aftermath, but they each, you know, received about 50% 3rd-degree burns, and you know, they for still to this day have surgeries related to those injuries. But those guys, again, Mitch came back to work a year to the date of the incident. But you know, a little bit about Ricky and Mitch. They were both young guys in the organization, very, very young. Knew both of them very well too. Mitch, again, was in volunteer fire department with me. Ricky he didn't work my shift, but again, he was well known in the organization. His family had a big catering organization, so everybody knew Ricky. But Mitch came back to work a year to the day of the incident, which was astonishing. A lot of support enabled that. Ricky Manti, he came back to work about 2 years later, and he was assigned to our safety, our training division. And Ricky Manti has been a blessing in that respect, because he has really applied everything we've learned and everything we've grown from after the incident, and incorporated that into our training and moving forward. And he just leads that aspect of what we do with regard to training. So that's our Ricky.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that about the individuals. Appreciate it. So, Chief, tell us a little bit about the day of the incident.
So again, at the time, like I said, Bryan, pretty small organization. Overall we have, at the time, 110 personnel. We run out of 5 fire stations, run about 9,000 calls a year at that time. We're up to about 12 now, but our daily staffing was a battalion chief, a single battalion chief, 5 engines, a truck company, 4 ambulances, and an EMS supervisor. That was our minimum shift staffing every shift, and that was our minimum. So we would hold overtime for that. On February 15th, it was just a normal day. I mean, we were just doing what we do, going on calls, hanging out. Wasn't anything unique about it. This particular call, of course, as you said, it came in late in the evening. So, for the shift guys who run calls all the time, it was about the 24th, 25th call of the day. But for me, it was really my first call of the day, my only call of the day. And again, it came in late at night. The initial alarm for the call, which we call our basic fire alarm, basic structural alarm response. Again, we had 3-man staffing at the time. So we had 3 engines with 3-man staffing, a ladder truck again with 3-man staffing, an ambulance with 2 people on it, 2 paramedics, an EMS supervisor, which is a lieutenant rank, battalion chief, and again, a battalion chief myself. So again, 16 units, or 16 people dispatched to the initial alarm, and all of us were on the scene at the time of the Mayday. You talked a little bit about the building already. It was built in 1945. It was an older building. Again, not uncommon for the Knights of Columbus. If many are familiar with that organization, they're scattered throughout. But again, built in the 1940s and some modifications in the 50s. We didn't have a pre-planned or inspection really of that property, so there were a lot of modifications going on that weren't permitted. The building itself, very large, like you said, about 7,400 square feet. Just as you can see that overview there, very, very big building. You got another angle of it there. I actually was familiar with the inside of the building because, again, living and growing up in the community, had been inside it for various functions, if you will. And so the building wasn't unfamiliar to me. And so we got dispatched, like you said, to that call very late at night, 11 o'clock, 11:19 at night, through our 911 system. When we got there, like I said, we saw flames through the roof. Again, just a regular fire for us. We're just going about doing our business. We got there, we saw the flames coming up. What was a couple of things that were interesting, when we first got there, when I first got there, engine 1 had got there first, and then I got there. But we requested a ladder truck from college because our ladder truck was out of service. Obviously, we're going to have a working fire when we roll up on something like that. But for me, wasn't a big deal, to be honest. Wasn't a big deal for Eric. Everybody was in their comfort zone, if you will, comfortable, just normal voice conversations, and so we just went about our business. Engine 1 got on the scene. You can see what we had there. Some fire showing through the roof. Still, for us, nothing to worry about. We knew the building. It's on a street we drive by routinely. So again, everybody knew the building from the outside. But Engine 1 got there. Our policy is to do a walk around. So believe it or not, a building that size, you saw how big it was. All the company officers did a walk around, including Lieutenant Wallace did a walk around. They park on the Alpha side, stretch their hose lines to the entry door on the Alpha side to make entry. The doors, 2 double glass doors with an aluminum frame. They force entry into that and go to work. We have a standby team in place when they arrive. I mean, we use our ambulance crew as an initial RIT team. We have an EMS supervisor that serves as our initial safety. Again, everybody's just arriving, going about their business. Engine 1 arrives on the scene, does her walk around, pulls 2 lines. One is a backup for the next unit. And you can see on your screen kind of how those were getting laid out. But we're just going about our business. Truck 1 arrived on the scene. They do their walk around. They're popping, unlock. You know, all the doors are locked. The business was closed and locked, or not closed, but locked for the night. So the truck is popping doors and then just closing them. And again, just for us, just a routine fire, to be honest with you. You know, all the passports are getting collected, just doing what we do. And, you know, the fire itself, you can kind of see that glow that we initially showed, and that's what it was. And again, nothing, no alarms, no bells or whistles going off, nothing that would just kind of raise a hair on your back or nothing like that. Just going about our business. I think I was trying to see, oh yeah, there you are. So that slide you have on right there shows, you know, the conditions right before the Mayday. I want to back up for a minute. You know, we had, you know, I had been talking to Lieutenant Wallace. He had made entry. We do UCAN reports. All of that was just going as you would expect. Again, nothing on the back, no worries in my mind, no hairs raising up on the back of my neck or anything. Just things were going great. And then Lieutenant Wallace, you know, called me on the radio, and he said he was in trouble. And it just came across as a casual conversation almost. He was out of air, low on air, confused. He couldn't find his way out. He and I talked for a few seconds on the radio. He kept telling me he was on the red hose line. And all the while, Lieutenant Pickard and his RIT team are getting in position. And I walk over to Lieutenant Pickard, who's at the front door, and asked him if he heard what was going on. And he said he did. And we both nodded our heads as we agreed. We got to go in and get him, because you can see the fire conditions are growing. And so Greg and them went in. Lieutenant Pickard, firefighter Mitch, and Manti went in to get Eric. And they went right in. They knew where he was. He was on the red hose line. So they walked right in. They got him, pulled him out. On the way out, the flashover occurred. And you can see that on your screen. And of course, when the flashover occurred, they got burned, and it knocked our radio system out. And we didn't have any way to communicate. And we went into what we call rescue mode. Again, trying to pull everyone out. And we eventually got them all out. You can see, if you look at the next slide, I think, which is kind of shows the layout of where the hose was, but there were 2 loops in the red hose line that we feel caused, one, Lieutenant Wallace to get disoriented, where you see that loop. And then the second one, where it kind of falls where the horseshoe bend is what caused the problems for the RIT team. When they were coming out, they were following the red hose line to come out, but inadvertently pushing the red hose line in a direction away from the door. So when they were following the red hose line, they were actually going away from the door. And when the flashover occurred, they were literally 10 or 12 feet from the door, 15 feet from the door. And again, it took us a while to get them all out. In my mind, one of the phenomenons that happens, but in reality, it only took about 25 minutes for me. I thought it was an hour, but but all the victims were, you know, Eric got in trouble at 11:40, and it was only 12 minutes after he went on air in the building. So again, I think it just reemphasizes how early on these things can happen. We got everybody out a little after midnight, and we transported them to the hospital. Eric died at the hospital. Greg, Mitch, and Ricky were all stabilized and then life flighted to Galveston for treatment.
All right, thank you. And I think, you know, one of the things you hit on is most of our previous discussions in this is a bread and butter fire for you. This is what you do every day. And you hit on it multiple times. There was nothing really that caused you any concern up before this happened.
Absolutely. There wasn't anything. And I think that's just I mean, it is common, you know, like you said, listening to the other incident commanders, you know, we were in our comfort zone and wasn't expecting anything. And it kind of caught me off guard when Lieutenant Wallace started just, in effect, just talking to me on the radio about him being in trouble.
Great. Tell us a little bit about the fire cause. What caused this fire? So
fire was ruled as accidental. Again, they had a kitchen there at the facility. They had some beer kegs, and they would move certain things around within the facility, and there were some extension cords running through a doorway that they would typically go back and forth on with the wheel dolly, and that's where they think the degradation occurred and weakened the extension cord, and ultimately where the fire cause was. And then it just traveled up. It was at a point to where what was unique about this fire, and again, ultimately, I think that created some of our issues. There was a flat roof, and then there was an add-on with a other roof, and it was right there where those voided spaces met, where this fire occurred. So it was traveling in two different directions in two different roof styles and hidden roofs, if you will, and that's where they think it started. Okay. Did have one question come in. Any idea what happened to the radio system? What caused that to fail? So it's a good question. That's a good question. What happened was when the flashover occurred, our SCBAs, we have two things happen when the flashover occurred. We have the radio mic for our radios, and that burned through, and then it shorted the radio mic. So when that happened, Eric's radio mic melted, and it was in a constant transmission. So it locked down the radio channel. And then the other thing, the pass device, shorted out too. So that was going off. And again, constantly sending in our dispatch center, they were getting Eric's pass device alert because the emergency alert was going off as well. Right. And so that's how our radio system got tied up. And at the time, we did not have a backup plan. Right. So you're basically out of communications at that particular point. Yes. Yeah. Yes. All right. Thank you. It's been a little over 7 years, or right around 7 years, the incident. What do you want today's firefighters to know about this incident? Well, where I think the takeaway is that it can happen anytime in the blink of an eye. It can happen. A Mayday, you just don't know when they're going to happen. And this is a good example. I was very confident in what I could do and what I felt like our shift could do, what our folks could do. And they did a very good job at what they did. And this fire was no different. When I always talk about this fire, you saw the size of the building. Every company officer did a walk around. They did before they went in. And that's just amazing, right? And every passport got collected. I mean, just little things of how, our ventilation process and our search and rescue, and what everybody was just clicking, if you will, what they were supposed to do, and yet things got missed because I was in this comfort zone. And here, here's just another fire. We'll knock it out. We'll go home the next in the morning. And for me, the takeaway is I think you always have to be in that guarded position to challenge yourself. And what am I missing? Am I missing something? For me, did I miss the smoke? Did I read the smoke right, as an example? And I was more focused on not reading the smoke probably per se as well, instead of listening to the guys, because from the inside they were knocking it down and it sounded like we were making good impact. But again, not taking the whole picture into account, or not second guessing, what's going on. Or that to me, that's the takeaway is you can't be so confident or so much in a rut that you forget, one, about the basics, one, that you always have to be in a state of evaluation. What am I doing? And what effect is it having on the situation? And I think that should be the takeaway. You always have to be doing that.
Excellent. Thank you. Tell us, were there any changes, and what kind of changes, if there were, what kind of changes were made after this incident?
So, as you would imagine, something of this magnitude, once we get past the funerals, and of course, Mitch and Ricky are still in the hospital, but it wasn't long. The fire chief, Chief McGregor, very proactive in let's find out what we did. What do we need to work on? And one of the first things he did was form a committee, and we formed a committee, and their responsibility was just to thoroughly investigate what we're doing. What are we doing on the fire ground? We started this long before any report was issued or anything like that. And because for us, we had to reassure not only everyone else in the organization that we were going to be proactive about looking, but also our families. One of the things that Chief McGregor did is we met at a church with all of the family. They came, and every wives and spouses and parents, and to reassure them that we're going to look into this moving forward and make whatever changes we had to make. So when we started with that committee, and it was represented by all ranks and all different viewpoints. And one of the first things that happened was the city council passed a resolution on June 25th of the same year of the incident to go to 4-man staffing. So we took all of our engines and our truck to a minimum of 4-man staffing. So that was, that was supposed to be worked in over a period of, I think, 8 or several years. But they passed that resolution over to go into effect over 10 years. And I think we met that here recently in about six years, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But we're at that point now, well, where we all have 4-man staffers. That was one of the first things. The second thing we did was we added a chief's aide position to help me in my position as battalion chief. In this incident, I was a single man unit, but now we added a chief's aide position, and we made that position a driver in our organization. The other thing we did is we added fire inspectors. We added a fire inspector to the fire marshal's office. We added, one of the things about this incident, when we deployed the RIT team, when I deployed the RIT team, we had a lot of active fire, and we only had 2 hose lines on the inside, and one of them was on Eric's line, and we knew that one wasn't flowing any water. And one of the things that we did is we sent an engine in for additional support of the RIT team, and we kind of carried that idea over into one of our changes. And so one of the changes we made is, whenever we stand up a RIT team, we stand up a blocking line, and the blocking line is a minimum crew as well of 3, and their whole purpose is to work in tandem with the RIT team for fire protection and flashover protection. So that was one of the changes we had. So in effect, we have a RIT team now of a minimum of 7, should be 7 people on our RIT team, 4 on the RIT team proper, and then 3 minimum on the blocking line. A couple other changes we made. One of the recommendations at the time with regard to our communications, NIOSH was recommending a second channel at that time for our fire. They've since changed their position on that, but at the time, one of our recommendations was the separate channel. So for many years afterwards, we worked on that separate channel thing, and it worked very well for us. We designated a rescue group officer to manage the rescue. When we have a firefighter rescue, we take our safety officer, we move him over to our rescue group officer, and he manages that rescue so that the incident commander can manage the incident and the rescue officer manages the rescue. And so we worked many years afterwards on training, how to change channels, how to work on 2 separate channels, how to make all of that work. And ironically enough, now it's just kind of changed positions, and we still have the separate radio channel set up as a backup in case we lose a radio system like we did on this fire. But now we stay on the same channel. We conduct all the operations. We went back to doing everything on the same channel, but we still have that second channel available if the incident commander needs it now. Some of the other changes we made is we want to make sure that it's very hard for firefighters to change radio channels in a dark environment. So we turned on our voice announced radio talk groups on our radio. So if you change groups in the dark, it tells you what channel you're on. And we programmed our radios so that, again, at the time, we were using a rescue channel. And so our rescue channel and we use the last channel in a radio bank as kind of an emergency channel, like as a fallback channel. So if all else fails, all you have to do is turn your radio channel all the way to the last channel as a safety, as a backup, if you will. So we've kind of programmed our radios to that respect. So that was one of the changes we made. Other changes, we created a Mayday Mode. We have an offensive, defensive type mode. So Mayday Mode seemed appropriate when we have a firefighter that's down, and then we have predetermined moves, if you will, and it gets everybody in that mindset. Thermal imagers. We've always had thermal imagers on all the units. Even this night of the fire, we had thermal imagers on the unit. Eric didn't take his in. No one knows why. He was very good about using his thermal imager, but this night he didn't. After the incident, one of the first things we did was make our thermal imager part of our PPE. In that, if the company officer doesn't have their thermal imager, it's kind of like not having your helmet, not having your gloves. You don't go in without your thermal imager, and so that's how important those thermal imagers are for us. Hose lines. So the night of the fire, one of the biggest things that helped the RIT team get to Lieutenant Wallace so quick was the fact that he could tell us he was on the red hose line. We had different hose colors, but they had different lengths. We had 150 pre-connects and 200 off the rear. Doesn't make sense. One can't back up the other. So our mentality is all of our pre-connected hose line lengths are all now the same, so that any hose line you pull off can reach the same distance as any of the other ones. All of our hose colors are different. And then each engine is set up the same. So the two cross lays are the same color, or same setup, the same off the rear. And so that, again, if you pull a hose line off, the company officer has to voice what hose color they're entering on, along with how many people. So just like in this instance, the the lieutenant L1 would enter on the red hose line with the crew of 3. And so that's part of the change we made, and that's mandatory. And if the incident commander doesn't hear that, he has to ask for that. So some other changes, you know, the flashover, when the guys were called into flashover, their bunker gear held up, but very well given the circumstances. But we felt like there was more we could do. And again, it's can be controversial, but in our mind, we want to prepare for when it happens. And that's probably listed somewhere here too, is we don't prepare for if it happens, we prepare for when it happens. And we added some extra layering in our thermal cap of our bunker coat for that shoulder protection, that back protection, for that flashover. And again, can be very controversial with regard to you know, your thoughts on that. But again, through training and education, we feel like that was the best thing we could do with that. We were in a 30-minute bottle. We went to a 45-minute bottle. That was another change. Our SCBA mask, we went to the high temp mask. Lieutenant Pickard is a good example. When he passed away in Galveston, you know, one of the doctors, while he was burned severely on the outside, it was the inside injuries that killed him. The thermal injuries internal. And, you know, he had a mask failure. So we went to the high temp mask on all of our SCBAs. We instituted an air management policy. One of the things we did with our new folks was all of our probationary firefighters, now we identify them with a green helmet, tetrahedrons and a helmet front. Our RIT training, again, Ricky Manti, one of the things he felt like that saved him was some of the measures he took during the flashover. I mean, he experienced him both then and Mitch experienced a flashover. So Ricky shares some of his flashover, how he kind of protected himself, and we use that in our training as well. We established a minimum crew size of 3 for IDLH, as you know, and we could do that once we started getting to a 4-man staffing. But as you know, and that just helps with the safety level. We didn't do pre-plans before. One of the changes we made is we do monthly pre-plans now. Each engine company and the trunk company have to go out and do pre-plans in their district. You know, one of the things we ignored for a long time was the UL and NIST research on flow path. So after this incident, we really started learning and studying that. And we've tried to, you know, again, Bryan is a very old department and very traditional. And, you know, transitional attack or hit it from the yard, you know, that still can be very controversial to some, but to us, it's not. To me, it's not. You know, so we tried to implement, or we have implemented, the what we call a transitional attack. It's all the same, whether you call it hit it from the yard type of approach when we can. Of course, as we all know, we can't always do that, but reducing that thermal threat before we go in is now very important to us. The Mayday project that Don Abbott does, again, very, very important to us. We did some training on that. So the last thing I think to cover about this incident is, or what moving forward from it is, we teach every new person coming into our organization. We go over this incident with them. We spend what we call on our self-rescue day. We spend the whole day. We go over the incident with them. We talk to them, tell them what we did, what we learned from it, and why we do what we do. Because for our organization, we have so many people coming in after it that they don't understand why we have different host colors or why we do this. And so it's important for all the members of our organization to know and learn from what we did. So.
I think there was quite a few questions. I think you covered most of them. You mentioned adding an additional engine to the initial assignment. Was there any other resources, chief officers? You talked about having a driver as a chief's aide. Any other resources added to that initial or second alarm assignments?
Well, we did add that extra engine to give an extra assignment. I think that's about it. We really started looking at heavy box. Once we started pre-planning now, that's our normal box alarm, and our normal box alarm, we changed it to 4 engines, but on our heavy box, and we have a heavy box alarm as well, and that's any commercial building will get a heavy box. So this fire would have got a heavy box, which would be 5 engines and 2 ladders, 2 ambulances. So for any commercial building, regardless of size, and I know that again sometimes is questionable, but we rely on the battalion chief to manage that. And if they get there and they don't need that big of a response, we feel like front loading it with the needs is better than calling for it later. So any commercial building, smallest to largest, if it's identified as a commercial building, it gets a heavy box now, which again is an even larger response than we had that night.
Okay, thanks. All right, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the department. Did it struggle a little bit after this from a confidence issue? And if so, how did you reinstitute that and regain that confidence?
Again, as you can imagine, very devastating to our organization. 4 guys, two LODDs, 2 guys still in the hospital. Lots of questions. Again, very, very devastating. Again, our fire chief, very proactive. Like I said earlier, he met with the families to try and reassure them that crew safety, personnel safety was our #1 priority moving forward. And just tried to reassure again that extended family at home that when we come to work, when your loved one comes to work, taking care of them is our #1 priority. And sharing our story, afterwards, sharing our story is very important as well. But I think to regain our confidence, it was just that process of rebuilding, if you will. We were focused on, we all knew that we needed to evaluate what happened and how to change. And you could easily, maybe or maybe not, depending on your perspective, you could say, well, he could have done this, or that person could have done that. But overall, what we did that night fundamentally was right along with what our policies and procedures said. And so looking at what we're doing, I think we were just focused on change. What do we need to change? And that's what regained our confidence, going through that process, training on the new process, and just rebuilding, if you will. Again, committed to remembering what Lieutenant Wallace and Lieutenant Picker sacrificed and why, and Mitch and Ricky. And then again, I think that focus of just rebuilding is where we got our confidence, where I got my confidence, I know. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you were experiencing as the incident was unfolding personally.
Again, I think what's what's the hardest thing to take about the incident personally is you feel like, you got it, right? This is, I feel very confident about what I'm doing, and then something happens. And so then you start to second guess yourself. Well, what did I miss? And I just feel like that's I know that's very common, because I talked to the other incident commanders. When you're in that position, you do take responsibility, because that's what you do. It's your job, right? That's our job to manage that incident and look out for everyone. And when it don't go right, you do take that personal responsibility, and myself is no different. I do take that. And so it is very stressful. And, for me, it's just shock and disbelief, initially, what's going on, when even, as the incident's unfolding, you just, it's disbelief for me. And I don't know how any other way to say it. It's just, why is this happening? It can't be happening. Everything's going fine. So I think what got, as the incident was unfolding, when I look back, because you don't have time to think, really, I didn't. You just do the job, right? You just kind of take over. What the mission takes over, the needs of the incident take over. And I think the other takeaway from that I always talk about is you just fall back to your gut. You fall back to your core of what you know. If and for me, like I said, we trained a lot, and I felt like the incident just took over, and I just addressed the needs as they came up based on what my gut told me to do. And that's kind of how the incident unfolded for me. It really is hard to describe. It's like a time warp, honestly. And you feel like, like I said earlier, I felt like the rescue took 45 minutes and it took 20 minutes. So it's really unique how when you're in that situation, how your perspective of time changes. And to this day, I'm still impacted by how time, I don't wear a watch as an example. I never wore a watch again. And it's just weird.
And how about in the aftermath of the incident? So you're back home a couple of days later and everything. What kind of things did you experience during the aftermath?
Well, again, I think, afterwards, you have to, the immediate part, we're still dealing with people in the hospital. And, so some of that, I think, covers, if you will, because you're dealing with that becomes what's important, right? Dealing with Mitch and Ricky are in the hospital, and Greg was still in the hospital. And so that part of it kind of hides, to me, what I felt. So it wasn't until probably days and months, really, for me, that it really set in. I mean, I share the same feelings that the other incident commander shared with me, that feeling of responsibility and blame and what did I miss? And again, a lot of people coming in to help our organization, a lot of, with the funerals to deal with, debriefings and CISMs, and can't say enough about the CISM process. Very helpful for me. But we didn't have to go back to work. The chief told us to take off as much time as we needed. Most of us took off a few shifts, again, just to kind of regain where we were at. But, I felt included in everything. I mean, our organization was very good about, as a group, when I say included in everything, the looking at the operations committee, dealing with the LODDs, the funerals, and all of those things, I didn't feel any different. I didn't feel out like an outcast or anything like that. All of my feelings were mostly internal, just from me over critiquing myself, if that makes sense. And so there wasn't you get a lot of, again, just what did I do wrong? What did I miss? Rethinking your command decisions. And you think about that every day. And that's where I was,
One of the questions came up is, can you talk briefly about the investigations? How did what happened with the NIOSH, the OSHA, all these kind of things, and how did that impact you?
I can't say really nothing but positive stuff about the investigation. In Texas, we have a commission on fire, a regulatory authority. So the fire marshal from the state comes in and do their investigation. And I can't say enough about that. NIOSH was there. We all did our interviews very professional, very cordial. We went through, you know, days afterwards. Again, I couldn't even tell you when it was, but when they started doing the investigation, it to me it went fine. I, like everyone else, came in and told them my part, and again, very professional, very respectful. There wasn't anything harsh about it for me. I wouldn't have anything but positive things to say about that process. I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you know, going back to the question about I think that was it, about my experience. Again, you know, I think the strongest thing is you know, we as an organization, we brought in, I think the organization did everything they could for myself and for our members. You know, we brought the CISM team in. We tried to bring all of those aspects in that existed at the time. You know, the fire chief, I was, you know, all of those things happen. You know, the one thing that again that was lacking is what we're doing now. There was no network for the incident commander, and then you know, there's no you know, at the time there's no conversation out there about this is available, or maybe you should go talk to someone, or and I don't mean a mental health professional. I mean a peer. You know what? I going back to, you know, learn. You know, there just has to be that conversation that there are people, your peers out there who you can talk to, and that didn't exist for me. And so I relied on really faith and my family, and that's where mine relied on right there.
Excellent, thank you. You mentioned that regaining confidence in the department and you as an incident commander had to do with the rebuilding process and the retraining and going through those things. Anything else you offer as far as, you know, getting back in the seat?
No, again, I do remember going back to work and going on calls, and you know, one of the things I always I think about now is I think about how I managed fires after this incident and how I managed fires before it. And you know, before it, I don't ever remember questioning or thinking, am I missing something? After the fire, I always ask that question, you know, because when the chief's aide position came in, I'd already transitioned out of the BC position somewhat. So I always ask, you know, I always remember asking myself, you know, what am I missing or what am I overthinking? So I think that rebuilding process, and again, after the incident, it's just repetition, training, and reinforcement, education, you know, learning. You know, for me, I just dove into the fire research from UL and NIST, and that helped me a lot too. So for me, just focused in that personal commitment to knowing more about my job, to knowing more about what I do every day and what I face, and that's where not that I didn't do it before, but I was just more focused on doing that now after the event.
Excellent. Question came in, have you had any Maydays since implementing all your changes in the department?
No, we have not.
Excellent.
I was trying to think if we had any close calls, and none that I recall off the top of my head, but no Maydays.
Okay. What advice would you give to officers and firefighters who may have to deal with the loss of one of their own?
Well, again, I hope it's the same message that we all are trying to get out there, that it's normal. You know, the emotions, the feelings, they are normal. I think it's because of that responsibility of that we feel this is abnormal, but it's not. It is normal. we all felt that, you know, moving forward, again, I can't say it enough, that we all feel the same. And that's just what I think is so unique about this group that we're in, is we are all different in personality and type and organization and calls and in every aspect, but we all feel the same thing after these incidences. And that's the biggest takeaway I think that I've gotten through this process. And again, to tell others, you know, again, you're not alone. And I think that's the biggest. Reach out and call somebody and just talk. Even if it's over the phone, I think it's going to be helpful.
Excellent. Question came up, was your department take any steps as far as memorials for the firefighters, you know, training in their name? I mean, you talked about a little about some of the changes and how you did business, but anything formal from that standpoint?
We did. You know, Lieutenant Pickard was one in our a very big part of our rescue. We have a rescue day that we do, and we do that in his name. The golf tournament, he played golf. We always did an annual golf tournament. So the stations, we did each station. Lieutenant Pickard was at Station 5, so we put a little section there about him at Station 5, and then Lieutenant Wallace was at Central Station 1, so we did a little thing there. So
excellent. And I know we talked, you know, you all had a lot of assistance, and you also took some efforts to pay it forward for assistance. You want to talk about that for a second?
You know, one of the most amazing things was down in Galveston when Greg, Lieutenant Pickard, Mitch, and Ricky got flown down there. You know, we know fire departments around the state, but we didn't know Galveston. And you know, they met the helicopters there in Galveston. It's, you know, it's a 2.5 hour drive, so whatever the helicopter time is. But you know, they met them there. Galveston Fire Department did, and at the burn center there in Galveston, and they rotated crews through the whole time that our guys were down there, just in case you need a ride somewhere, you need to go somewhere. And it was just amazing what they did for our guys that were down there. And then, of course, you can see that picture. That's the room Lieutenant Pickard was in when he died. And when he died, Galveston posted their honor guard there at the door. So that's an amazing picture. One of the things we took away from this event, not along with that picture right there, but the way we were treated for the funerals, all the help that came in that helped us, we try and pay it forward. And we try, and our honor guard, you know, got more active, and we try and reach out and help other fire departments in any way we can. And then not long after our incident, we had the West incident. And that's a picture of our honor guard there at the West explosion. Again, trying to pay it forward. You know, when that incident happened, I went down again as a peer-to-peer person because of my volunteer experience as a volunteer chief to peer support the West. So again, trying to pay it forward is really big for us. Even to this day, we look at how can we pay it forward. And the other thing that we changed, if you will, in our mindset is when we make decisions, we don't talk about if it happens anymore. We talk about when it happens. And a lot of people always want to talk about, well, why is you know, we're going to write a policy for it. We write a policy, or we make a decision based on when something will happen, because inevitably it will happen. It's just a matter of when, and it's no different for us in this instance. You know, it's going to happen, and are you ready for it? And again, that's my ongoing question to officers and anyone who's going to pull that position of an incident commander. What are you doing personally to make sure you're ready to not only manage the incident, but manage the aftermath of the incident within yourself. And you have to prepare yourself and your organization for that.
Chief, thank you very much. I truly appreciate your time and willingness to share. A very powerful conversation we had, and it's going to really make a difference in the fire service. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Well, again, thank you for allowing me to do that. And I can't say enough to how valuable this program is. And just to let we have to get the message out to all of the fire service. When these things happen, we have to reach out or get the message to that incident commander. There is someone, pick up the phone and call someone and just talk. And I think it will help. Again, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I failed to mention in the beginning, Chief Ondrasek has been pivotal in the development and the implementation of our IC to IC program. I guess summer 2019, 26 incident commanders got together and developed this program, and there were 26 incident commanders that suffered line of duty deaths and developed the program, and he's been instrumental ever since and is a peer for us now. So truly done great work with that, and truly appreciate your work on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
The program's available, firehero.org. You can go there for information if you need resources, anything, and we can help you with whatever you need from there. Just take a couple minutes before we conclude. Not only is the supporting incident commander program and the IC to IC program, there's tons of other programs on the Fire Hero Learning Network. So I think we have Rick and/or John here today that will lead us through a couple minutes of that. So you should be co-host and ready to go.
Hey, good afternoon, all. I'm not sure if Rick got back in time. He had to step out for just a second. So I'm John Tippett, Director of Fire Service Programs with National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. And on behalf of the foundation, I just want to extend a sincere thanks to Joe for sharing his experience and doing just an absolute remarkable job of helping others recover from an unthinkable event. And for those of you that are also listening in today and may not recognize some of the names, a number of the cohort that make up the IC to IC program are also listening in today, as they have when other presentations were done. And I think it's a sign of the significant amount of mutual support they lend each other and are helping each other as they go through this. So as Ian mentioned, National Fallen Firefighters Foundation offers a number of different programs. And one of those is the Fire Hero Learning Network. It's an online learning platform. And on that program, there are 45-minute to an hour-long programs to sort of introduce you to the NFFF program system, everything from Courage to Be Safe, all the way up to the programs that Ian sponsors, which is taking care of our own. So we try to address in those hour modules things that are pertinent and relevant to the fire service. We have some new modules on there regarding responding to violent events, which is in the process of being updated with all the things that are going on in the world today, as well as how to have cultural discussions with your folks and broach some subjects about improving firefighter safety and adopting a process where we dominate the risk that we assume. It's never our intent to try to keep firefighters from doing their job, but we don't want to continue to experience the events, as each of the folks that are part of the cohort will probably tell you that the last thing they would ever want to do is have somebody else join the club. So we're taking a multi-pronged approach. We are covering everything from having the discussion right at recruit level, which is Courage to Be Safe, all the way up through chief level. But in the event that a line of duty death occurs, and we know that's going to continue to happen, we want to be prepared in that regard as well, which is the focus of this program. So for any additional information, or if you're interested in becoming an advocate on our advocate side, or if you know an incident commander that's experienced a line of duty death, even if it was 25 years ago and they never had a chance to deal with it with anyone, then certainly encourage you to get in touch with Ian for the line of duty deaths, and our best at firehero.org will be your point of contact for getting in touch with someone about the advocate program. So just want to thank everyone for logging in today. The presentation has been recorded and will be available shortly for others in the fire service to take advantage of. And just again, on behalf of the foundation, I want to thank Chief Joe, and then also all the other IC to IC cohort members and advocates that I've seen have logged on here for their support of our programs to do what we can to get every firefighter back to his family. So Ian, Joe, thank you all very much.
John, thanks for taking the time to share that with us. So that concludes our program. Just a couple notes. We will be doing this again February 25th, the fourth Thursday. We're going to continue these. I will be talking with Chief Michael Guerin from the Pineville, North Carolina Fire Department, volunteer fire department just outside of Charlotte, who lost a firefighter in the line of duty. So we'll be doing that again February 25th at 1 p.m. and we'll be sending out the information from that. So again, thank you all very much for taking the time and joining us today. Chief, a lot of good comments coming across. Thanking you very much. The incredible presentation, and thank you for your willingness and courage to share your experiences. So
Thank you again.
So excellent. So thank you all very much for taking the time to join us. Hope you all have a great day, and hope you'll join us on February 25th. Take care. See you.